Sawadi. Did you enjoy the yesterday meeting? And I also joined the online with my mobile phone and some sessions, and then it was very interesting. And I'm very sorry not join with you even by online. Uh, as in Korea, our fiscal year ends at the end of December, so it is very busy in this season to finish all the government project. So I couldn't join you yesterday and today. Today my topic is Today my topic is work-related cardio-cerebrovascular diseases, and then others ask me to talk about the guarosa in Korea. You may know the karoshi in Japanese, same word, but in the different sound. And before starting my session, I would like to ask you to following question. Can it be compensable as work-related if you're the member of a committee for workers' compensation? Can you accept these cases? And this case is a man who is the age 58, the male, and his job is medicine, pharmacy deliverer by car from the pharmaceutical company to the pharmacy. And he was found in death in a car during lunchtime at the road near the customer office. And by the autopsy, he showed acute myocardial infarction, and his atherosclerosis is almost 90% or 80%. His coronary artery is almost occlusive. So, what is your decision if this case is asked to you to evaluate is it work related or not? So you may have the different opinion. It's the same in Korea. So when it is, of course, you should know about in the workload if you agree with the cardiovascular disease is work related. And his work story is in general is different from the employer side and then worker side. Employer said there is no workload during last 4 weeks and or 12 weeks before developing the accident, and then he just said the workers worked less than 50 hours per week because he started work at 7:30 and ended in then around 4 p.m. And it's almost 45 hours. Even he worked some more, it could be less than 50 hours. And the employer said he worked in for 2-time shipping in a day. However, the victims of the workers, of course, and the lawyers or some other supportive person said there's no lunch break and then continuous working during the lunchtime. So if added, the total is more than 60 hours per week. And they said he started to work at 7:30 to until 7 p.m. So six days a week. And normally people, the workers in this the company delivered in the 2 times a day, but he was asked, and because he has done very well, he was asked to 3 times shipping in a day. And then, of course, because of the time limit, and then lunch, he ate the lunch box in his car. So this is the the time schedule, and before shipping, he spent in the 1 and 30 minutes for arranging the shipping materials, and also first shipping takes around 40 hours, 2 hours and 40 minutes, including lunchtime. And second shipping is because then the road condition is worse than the morning. So it takes in the 3 hours and 30 minutes. And then when he came back to the company, and he also uh, uh, many times I don't know, we don't know exactly, but some more than half he engaged in third shipping and starting from 30 p.m. to usually ended in 7 p.m. or 7:30. It's different from the amount of the work. So they claim the workers claim that he worked and then at least 11 hours. Of course, this is overestimated. But in without this time limit, look at that. He started all in the morning, and then until the end of the work, he actually he didn't have enough time to be rest, and then even he took the lunchbox in his car at a very short time. So this is a really stressful worst condition. So this claim was rejected in the at the compensation agency, and then the workers appeal and also rejected, and it came again to reappeal committee under Minister of Labor. So I just insist this is a special condition, so he should be compensated. So my claim was accepted, and he was finally compensated. And let's see his personal history. And then he has done a medical examination, and he was suspected the hypertension, having hypertension and diabetes. But he couldn't follow that because I believe he worked in the 6 days a week, and he didn't have time during the daytime when he could visit in the doctors. And also his total the cholesterol was 296. It's quite high, but we don't have the low density LDL cholesterol, and his blood pressure was normal. And however, his blood sugar was 137. It's probably he might have the diabetes. And his height is 172 centimeter, and the weight is 79. He is quite obese, and he drinks 3 times a week. It's like normal in Korean the workers. And then he stopped working, smoking for the 1 year. So based on this information, he has already, he probably have the high level of the atherosclerosis, which is not recognized by himself. But in some medical examination, give the information about that he could be have high the atherosclerosis, but then he didn't have enough time because of this tight work. So tight work is not the cause of his death, but it probably is aggravate his death. It just developed his myocardial infarction is caused by some the long working hours. So yes, this is the case. So let me say let me see the accepted in cerebral cardiovascular disease in Korea by year. We started to compensate it in 1995, and this is data. It's sharply increased until 2003, and then after that is a decreasing, and then also sharply decrease in 2008 because at the time we changed the some definition for compensation. So after that, it accepted around 600 or 700, and then recently the criteria are more the generous, and then more cases were accepted in recently. So this is gwarosa in Korean, gwarosa, and Japanese, and the karoshi. But it's the same Chinese character, originate from Chinese character karoshi. Okay. So today I'm going to talk about and work-related cerebral cardiovascular diseases. In Korea, in the Ministry of Health, it usually cardio-cerebrovascular diseases. But in the labor side and the workers' compensation side, we usually say cerebral first because the cerebrovascular disease compensated the first, and then the cardiovascular came later. And then I will talk about the background and then researches and some prevention and then diagnostic criteria for compensation. And the background, in the before 1990s, the case of death caused by cerebral hemorrhage during night shift, night duty, was compensable as work-related diseases in Korea. Probably it could be started from Japan because at the time social security is very weak, and if the employer who died at workplaces during the night duty, and there's no other social security to compensate them. So because they died at workplaces, and suddenly, and then they were compensated as something work related, but only cerebral vascular hemorrhage cases. So in early 1990, the one taxi driver, he claimed the workers' compensation about his cerebral infarction. So people generally don't know about the difference between cerebral hemorrhage and the cerebral infarction. At that time in Korea, cerebral hemorrhage was the dominant. Now cerebral infarction is dominant. So because there is poor uh, the uh, controlling and hypertension or some lifestyle disease at that time. So hemorrhage were common, but hemorrhage controlled wear is decreasing now, but infarction is rare. So he claimed, but his claim was rejected at the initial compensation office, and then he appealed and then reappealed, and eventually he went to the court, and the court rejected, but he went up to Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court in 1991 accepted this case as work-related because the Supreme Court think that workers' compensation is not only employer's responsibility. It is also could be one of the social security system our society because this is insurance, and then workers who the victim, the family or victim, they don't have any social security if they didn't get anything from the workers' compensation. So this is a court decision. After the court decision for this, there are lots of the claims was accepted. So the means of labor was pressed to change the guideline or some criteria, like the criteria. And this is a social security system in Korea. And our industrial accident compensation insurance, so-called workers' compensation, started for 1962. And then it is just expanded to every employees in 2000. And then any paid workers is automatically join this workers' compensation system. And the medical insurance started to 1977, and then it's covered all people in Korea in 1988. And the pension and retirement pension started 1988, and then it is ended 2006. And also unemployment insurance, that started 1991 and then ended in the 1998. So all the paid workers in Korea just covered by the workers' compensation, insurance and the pension and unemployment and insurance. So the questions and work-related cerebral cardiovascular disease questions. How about cerebral infarction? If we compensate cerebral infarction, what is the myocardial infarction? So we know that at the medical school, we learned that myocardial infarction is developed by aggravated by their stress. So stress, job stress is one of the major risk factors of myocardial infarction. And if we accept these two diseases, and then can we estimate or calculate the amount of the workload to develop stroke or infarction or myocardial infarction, whatever? So there's a lot of discussing, and then based on our experience at the emergency room by the neurologist, neurophysician, and we established a diagnosis criteria in 1994, and then it was effective in 1995. And then at the diagnosis criteria, we define the disease, and then we define the exposure as a workload. And then there is no enough information about that, but generally, based on the study on the cases, and then workers who worked more than 60 hours per week is more the high the risk, have more high risk. And then at the time, our work hours per week is 44. So around if we approximately 30% increasing, and could be the workload. It's just the assumption, and also there's a different the mechanism to develop by infarction and hemorrhage. Hemorrhage is more easily occur when people are active, the workers are active, or something the frightened or some sudden event can develop the hemorrhage. But in the infarction usually occurred early in the morning during the night, and then is developed during more calm when the workers are more calm. So it is a little different. So it is very difficult to differentiate between the course of the hemorrhage and the infarction. But hemorrhage is more easily developed during the work based on this idea. If hemorrhage occurred during the work, inside the workplaces, it is automatically accepted and work related. So this is a basic criteria. So I joined this committee as the youngest member, and at the time my seniors, 20 or 30 years older than me, they really confused about this idea. But I just explained we are not talking about the direct cause. We are talking about someone who is very vulnerable, and then there is a trigger, and then trigger just developed in this disease. That is the concept for work related. So, but it was really difficult for them to accept, and then the concept of work related. And this is the disease we include for the compensation. One is cerebrovascular disease, and then heart disease, cerebrovascular disease, hemorrhage, two hemorrhages, intracranial hemorrhage, and then SH, subarachnoid hemorrhage. You believe that, and this hemorrhage is usually the abrupt rupture of the aneurysm. So it's not directly related to the work. It is also common in the young people because he has a aneurysm. It's easy to be ruptured. But anyway, this is included, and then cerebral infarction was included. And we put in the two other heart disease. One is myocardial infarction and angina pectoris. So these are really caused by triggered by the stress. And however, this is just a symptom. This is something severe disease, but this is just symptomatic, sometimes in subjective. So it is difficult to detect. So we remove this in um, uh, several years later. And also we include dissecting aneurysm. This is also suddenly developed. So we include in the 5 disease category for compensation. So the issues for compensation brought a lot of public attention because of high death rate by work related. Many the big company where the union is very strong, they push the employer to do some action because many people were accepted as occupational. They don't know exactly difference between occupational and then work related. But then they just say, oh, this is the work-related diseases. You should do something. And then from that, many employers try to improve uh, this the control of this lifestyle disease or some working hours and other many other things. And also, it causes a high economic burden to workers' compensation. So the expense for compensation occupied almost 9 to 10% of whole budget. Even the number of the cases just like 1 or 2%, but they spent a lot of money to compensate that because usually cerebral vascular accident develop and then they have to treat for a long time and then they usually develop the disability. Eventually, they died of the cerebral vascular disease. So in that case, they paid all medical insurance, the work day, the payment, and then eventually in the death compensation. And this is compensated work-related cardio-cerebral vascular diseases in Korea. So this is the general work-related occupational diseases compensated. And this is the cerebral cardiovascular disease. So only this time, the proportion of the cardiovascular disease very high. So lots of action have have done to preventing the cardio-cerebrovascular disease at this time. And I just show the cases compensated work-related cerebral cardiovascular disease in 3 countries, like in Japan, Taiwan, Korea, where there are the cardio-cerebrovascular diseases as one of the occupational diseases. This is the number of the Taiwan. Taiwan has until this is the statistic until 2009. It's very low, and then this is Japan. Japan started first to compensate the cerebral vascular diseases, but it's very restricted, very limited. In Korea, we compensated rapidly, and then the case of compensated rapidly increasing, and almost 2,300 cases in a day in 2003. This is the maximum. So we have done a lot of the new occupation health management or service tasks. The workers provide for the lots of the different kind of service from the employer or from the government to protect the cardio-cerebral vascular diseases at this time. And then this is a whole cases in Korea from 1996 and to 2020. So this is left increasing, and we have done probably this is due to unclaimed cases come together. And before that, many people didn't think of the claim for workers' compensation, but after knowing that they claim the cases, so this rise up to 2,300, and then uh, we tried a lot of the action for prevention. The effect of prevention came out from 2003, and the number of the cases has been decreased. And in 2008, we changed again. We amended the criteria again. So there, from that, we applied for working hours, not automatic compensation when hemorrhage occurred in workplaces. I told you in the beginning, but in it, we dropped in this criteria, and then we just compensate based on the working hours. And recently, and our we have some more the added the consideration to be compensated. So the case, the compensated cases are more extended. And this is expense for cerebral cardiovascular disease compensated at work-related diseases. The left, the bar means in the money. This line means the number of the compensated the person. And this is money, is the Korean money, but I just the unit is 1 billion unit in Korean, so 600 the billion Korean, but in Korean won is approximate similar 1,000 Korean won is similar to $1. So if we change this 1 billion, this is a million US dollars. So you can imagine 100 million. This is 300 million US dollar equivalent. So the amount of the money is so very high, 5 million, almost half billion the US dollars we paid for the cerebrovascular diseases. So then if someone said, oh, it is because the general health condition has been improved. I mean, the reason of the decreasing work-related cerebral cardiovascular diseases is caused by the general improvement of the health condition of the general people. So I checked the the death due to cerebrovascular disease in Korea. These are whole cases. Every year, the many the Koreans died or cerebrovascular diseases. This first curve means in a whole population cerebrovascular diseases. This second, the dotted line means the 3-year average of the death of the the age of 20 to 50, 10 to 59. And this is age of 20 to 64 because our retirement age is the 60. However, many people working more than that. And I just checked the two age group. Look at that this slope, and this compared to this the working age, and then slope of general population is more smooth, so more steep. So it means, and the number of the cerebrovascular diseases is working age is much decreased than the general population. It is same in cardiovascular diseases. Cardiovascular disease in Korea was relatively very low in early 1983. I studied with the medical doctor from 1983. I'm so a little bit old. And this time at the time, ischemic heart disease very rare, but now the ischemic heart disease is very common. And this is the general population. This is working age 20. This is the general population. Let me see that. This is general population. This is the 3 years average of age 20 to 59, 20 to 64. if you look at this, when the number of cases in general population has been increased, the number of cases working age has been decreased. So I believe that I always emphasize, insist that this caused by the prevention activities by the occupational health professionals, like in the government or Gachon, the employers and whatever, any prevention activity course in this result. And the researchers, and still many the Western people suspect that, oh, really cardiovascular or the cerebral vascular disease caused by the work, and they don't believe, oh, this is the story of the far eastern the countries like in Japan, because in the Korea, because they worked too long. And however, there's many the papers relate to work-related cerebral cardiovascular diseases. So yesterday I show you the global burden of disease. Even the University of Washington, they didn't count the the stroke and then heart disease. They didn't count any occupational course, but they just put in as an environmental. However, the WHO ILO, they put an occupational risk factor to cardiovascular disease, the heart disease or stroke. The researches, there's many research. One of our research in 2008 is the about and then certain cardiac deaths in tire manufacturing factories. It was a big social issue, and the COSHA investigated this factory in many ways. And then finally, we reported the result to the show our journal in Safety and Health at Work. You probably get information. You can read more information from this. For the risk factors for cardiovascular disease, for 7 cases, there are 7 deaths in a short period. And look at it. This is occupational factors. They were exposed in 7 people. 1 person exposed in high temperatures, and then fine particles in the day, of course, exposed. And then they just worked in the shift work, and they worked along they had long working hours. And of course, some of them, 3 of them, were had job stress. Excuse me. And also they have the non-occupational factors. Most one is the smoking, you see that, and then obesity or overweight. And also you see then hypertension and the pre-hypertension, and then alcohol drinking, some others, and old ages. Oh yes, only one person is more than 55. The other persons are less than 55. So based on this information, cardiovascular disease, the death, can be aggravated by this some occupational component and shift work, and then who has the risk about the non-occupational factors. And this is also the study by the Pitanen, who was the main keynote speakers in ICOH 2015. You probably remember in the Finnish researchers, and she was in the UK at the time, but she reported in long working hours and cardiovascular diseases. If we worked more than 10 hours a day, you have the more easily, your risk is 1.56, 50% increasing risk of cardiovascular diseases. Also, another report from the Finland, and I'm sorry, this is in Korean. This is cardiovascular disease. This is a stroke. So he just checked in the papers, and the papers reported increasing risk of cardiovascular diseases or stroke caused by the long working hours. And also, this is the coronary heart disease and then stroke. If the time increasing 55 hours, and then the increasing almost and then 8%, but it's not high. But then think about that. There are so many cardiovascular diseases. Even 8% is very a large number of the cases. And the stroke is a 1.33 is a 30% increasing stroke if you work more than 50 hours. And then more recently, and then WHO and ILO, they have done very good study. They gathered all the good designed, good methodological studies, which was published or unpublished in any way, and they get all the papers, and then they have done the meta analysis. Well, I am one of the co-authors of these papers, and you can get information Environment and International 2021. And based on this study, full study, and the ischemic heart disease is a 17% increase in ischemic heart disease if we work more than 55 hours. And then stroke, and then 35 increase if you work and more than 55 hours. So now it is we can definitely long working hours can cause maybe aggravate and the ischemic heart disease or stroke. So how to prevent? So how to prevent cerebral or cardiovascular diseases? And the first one is reduce the risk. Is the best way. Reduce working hours or reduce night shift if possible. But it's a bit difficult to eliminate the night shift because the emergency room should operate in the 24 hours in fire station or police department. There's many jobs which should be 24 rotation. So if we cannot avoid this the night shift, we have to have a good rotation schedule, and also try to reduce the job stress. And even we removed all the risk because the workers still the person. As I told you yesterday, this is internal lifestyle problem, second phase. So we have to eliminate the cause. What is the cause? Cause is lifestyle disease, hypertension, diabetes, hypercholesterolemia, or obesity. If we control this, we can prevent the stroke or heart disease at least during the working age. And change the behavior. It's a so-called health promotion, and then stop the smoking, drinking, or the balanced diet, or some less salt or exercise. And we try to health promotion to prevent cerebral cardiovascular diseases, regardless the work-relatedness. And let's see, all the cause of the stroke. So mostly stroke can be developed because of the hypertension, more than 70 or 80%. And then that hypertension causes hemorrhage or infarction and any other many diseases. And also aneurysm. Aneurysm can cause in subarachnoid hemorrhage, SAH. And AV malformation. Some people has AV malformation is developed in cerebral hemorrhage. So it is very difficult to understand for neurosurgeon or some neurologist, because this is the natural, this is a personal disease. How can these disease be work related? They didn't understand, but we explained the theory about not the cause, this aggravation or triggering and the diseases. So we don't compensated hypertension. We compensated the result, stroke, ischemic heart disease. And heart disease and atherosclerosis can develop the cerebral infarction. So, but risk factor, let's say the risk factor, aging, if it's getting age, the hypertension is naturally developed. I took the medicine for hypertension. I tried to check many times, but my blood pressure is high enough. So I tried taken the drug since 2018 or 17 or 18. So I took the medicine every day, and also family history because it's not the genetic, might be genetic, but more environmental issue. They share the lifestyle or nutritional pattern. They someone father or mother if they prepare the salt, probably their children eats more salt. So there is the environment issue or gender. It's a more frequent hypertension frequent in the male in before or the 50s, but after menopause, the women have the more hypertension because of their hormonal the change, and this is one of the issues in the race. And then the race then has more hypertension than other race, but this is uncontrollable. This is just natural. So, but there's other things to develop in the stroke, like health status. I told you already: hypertension, hyperlipemia, diabetes, obesity, and smoking and drinking, and the less exercise and food. If you eat more salty food, you have more chance to develop in the hypertension and the occupational. So we can prevent, we can control this sector, although we cannot control these sectors. The prevention strategy should go this way, and then long working hours, and then sedentary work. Already yesterday, I also mentioned that the Dr. Ramazzini described about the disease of the sedentary work. Sedentary work, the clerk or officeman usually have more the lifestyle disease, and eventually they died earlier than expected. So how to reduce the risk factor of a stroke? And then two things. One is health management at workplaces, control lifestyle disease. And then I recommend in health managers in workplaces, please do not try to check only occupational or some classical factors like chemicals or heavy metals or noise or dust. You should check the health status of the old employees in your factory, in your company, and then check the hypertension, hyperlipemia, diabetes, obesity, and if they have some the problem, you push them to do some action to treat or some change their behavior, whatever, to reduce the risk and also control the hypertension. And then the best way before development, and then we have the balanced diet and then weight control and then exercise. Once the hypertension is developed, do not hesitate to take the drug, the medicine. Many the workers, many people just hesitate to taking drug, the medicine. If I owe a doctor, if I started to eat and then the medicine, I should have to eat forever, until die. Yes, you have to do that. But think about that. You eat every day. You wash your face every day. You do teething. You brushing your teeth every day. It's just same. Why do not? You just take a drug in the morning, just one drug. That's enough. So if you take the drug well, and then I guarantee you will be healthy at least, and in terms of the cerebral vascular or cardiovascular disease until working age, or up to 70 or 80. It's general. If you do that, that's okay. And also we try to control, and then also, of course, we avoid in long working hours, job stress, and then shift work. based on this idea, some the Korean company the workers working more than 60 hours, sometimes 68 hours per week now is strictly regulate on the 50 hours a week. It's generally 40 hours, and then but they can expand more than 30% only. It's 52 hours per week, and in the once in 1930, you remember the economist Keynes, who said I don't know in English he's modified capitalism, and he mentioned that in his book. And my grandson, I'm working more than 40 hours at the time, probably 50 hours. But in my grandson generation, working hours will be reduced up to 30 hours per week. But now we are working 40 hours, but some European country working 35 hours per week. The time the the economist mentioned didn't arrive, but it probably arrived in the future because AI will substitute many work of hours, and we don't have to work the more than 40 hours per week. We just I just said the 20 hours per week is enough. At that time, the definition of the long working hours will be changed, and yes, ischemic heart disease. Everybody know that the real cause is atherosclerosis. If your the coronary artery is blocked, and then ischemic heart disease will be developed. But there is the risk factors to develop in this atherosclerosis, hyperlipemia. This is real the cause. And when you examine the workers, and if you find their LDL cholesterol is high, the cardiologist strongly recommend to take a statin to reduce the LDL cholesterol. That is the best way to control ischemic heart disease in the future. And obesity, stress, smoking, lack of exercise, and hypertension and diabetes. Okay. How to strategy for reducing heart disease? It's the same, just the physical and the psychological. Physical, I already mentioned that, and then psychological is more occupational the factors. Okay, and finally, I would like to changes in diagnosis criteria for compensating cerebral cardiovascular disease in Korea. I already in the beginning I mentioned that we established a new diagnosis criteria in 1994. It was effective in 1995, and then it was first time it was noticed of means of labor. It's not the regulation, and then it promoted it upgraded to the diagnosis criteria. I'm sorry. This is the diagonal criteria for regulation, not the presidential decree. And 2008, we again this diagonal criteria is upgrade to the level of the presidential decree. You probably know the differences between law, presidential decree, and then regulation. A law is made by the parliament, the National Assembly. Presidential decree is controlled by. This is agreed by. This is approved by the president, but they just negotiate with the parliament, and the regulation is approved by the minister of each ministry. And the notice is just the low level. In 1995, the first diagnostic criteria is described like this. One, they describe for what kind of the disease can be compensated. They are cerebral hemorrhage, infarction, hypertensive encephalopathy, myocardial infarction, angina pectoris, and there are two conditions. One is acute physiological change by abrupt or unexpected tension exciting, fear, surprise, work environmental change, like acting. And the other one is chronic fatigue, caused by the increased work burden, like based on the amount of the work, time, strength, or responsibility, and work environmental changes. There's two factors. And at the time, if hemorrhage happened during work, it could be automatically compensated. And at the time we described, the chronic work burden means 30% more than usual workload for 3 consecutive days before the accident. This is the first diagnostic criteria. And the second criteria, we removed hypertensive encephalopathy and myocardial angina factories, and then added in the dissecting aneurysm. And also, we divide the 3 different conditions. One is the acute condition, the other one is the subacute condition, and then chronic condition. Acute condition didn't change it, and then the subacute condition means a short period of time. It means generally a week. And this is the chronic work burden is a long working. It's generally 3 months or more than that. So this case is changed to upgrade to presidential decree, and in our final diagnosis criteria is just similar. Like this is the 30 concept. However, and we just more specified this guideline, and then under the notice or guideline for determining of cerebral cardiovascular diseases. Acute stress usually means 20 hours before the accident, and work burden during a short time, which means in the amount of work for 1 week before the accident exceed 30% of that of 12 weeks average before the accident. So this is means in the 1 week workload burden. And also chronic workload is means in the more than 3 months. So they calculated the working hours, and then if it exceeded more than 60 hours, yes, it's more guideline for specific judgment for cerebral cardiovascular diseases, and exceed average 6 hours per week for 12 weeks, or 64 hours for weeks. This is automatically, almost automatically compensated in this exposure. If the workers have this kind of exposure, if someone exceeded 52 hours during less than 12 weeks, and if there is another added condition, more the condition, and it is more the it is evaluated that the relationship between work and disease increase as working hour increase. So 52 hours, if the 55 hours is more easy to develop to cardio or cerebral vascular diseases. If there are factors that increasing burden of work, it is evaluated that the relation between work and the disease is strong. I will explain for what is the other factors. And even if they do not exceed 52 hours, if there is more factors that increasing workload, that can be compensable. So the condition means it's almost can be compensable if they have added conditions. And the night work, if the night shift between 10 to 6 a.m. of the next day is 30% of daytime shift is added. If at the time, if they work in the 2 hours, the working time we regard as added in 30%. It means the 3 hours. Yes. Okay. If work 2 hours as more during the shift, and that means in 120 minutes, if we added multiply the 30%, 36 minutes. So it means it calculates 2 hours night shift equivalent for 2 hours 36 minutes a day work. So it is easy to exceed it in the 60 hours if we work in the night shift. And what other workload bearing factors? And there are 7 things. One is work with the difficulty in predicting work schedule. If your schedule is frequently changed, if you didn't expect to this time, but next day is it is changed. This is the one of the factor. Shift work is one of the factor. Work without holiday, not is off days. So if you work continuously 7 days a week, it is more. It is another risk factor. And if work exposure, if your work is exposed to harmful working environment like a cold temperature and hot temperature or noise, if we work in outside and then during the daytime, and then in Thai it is very hot during the daytime. If we work in outside, it is one of the high risk factors. And work with high physical intensity. If you do manual work with your workload is very hard, it can be counted as one of the risk factors. And your work is a frequent business trip with a large time lag zone. If you travel, like in the pilot, if you travel from to the Bangkok to Europe, and the Europe to the Bangkok, and frequently, and if you have the business trip frequently, that could be altered your the body regulation system, then can trigger in developing cardio-cerebrovascular diseases. Or work with high mental tension. If you really do stressful the work, it could be also workload bearing the factors. Okay, in summary, heart disease and stroke can be compensable by workers' compensation. They are work-related diseases, and long working hours is a major occupational risk factor of stroke, and one of the major occupational risk factor of stroke and heart disease. And there are the other occupational risk factors to increase the development of stroke and heart disease, like in shift work, stress and tension, unexpected work schedule, frequent time zone change, heavy physical workload, no enough off days. But this is based on our experience, our social consensus in Korea. Probably this condition would be different from the country. But the only thing is, what I emphasize is that heart disease or stroke can be aggravated or triggered by occupational reason, risk factors. And then so they could be work-related diseases. This is what I want to say these lectures. Thank you very much for your attention.
Okay. May I ask Ajahn Adun, if is there any movement in our country that we will put the long working hours diseases into กองทุนเงินทดแทน Act, the Worker Compensation Act of our country? Is there any movement right now, or we are still don't have any movement? ถามว่ามีความเคลื่อนไหวที่จะใส่เรื่องโรคจากการทำงานระยะเวลานานในพรบกองทุนเงินทดแทนไหมอะค่ะอาจารย์ขอบคุณค่ะ
For the last 2 years, there is a request from the worker. At that time, I am the committee in the worker compensation fund, and the worker asked about the office window working to be the compensated with this. But the committee discussed and think that we have to have a certain criteria for this before we can announce. So it's still in working in the working group. As you see the lecture from Professor Kang, I feel that if we announce the criteria for this anesthesia in Korea, the owner of the factory will not accept the worker with the chronic disease to work. Yes, because the factor in the work, many factors can provoke the cardiovascular disease or cerebrovascular disease. So we must have the exact criteria for this. But I think it is very interesting because work demands more time today, and we not only work in the office, we work at home also. Yes, just like in our career, the doctor they practice in the working out, and they also get knowledge at home. So we work more than 8 hours a day. Okay.
Thank you.
I think if you have some questions, you can type in the chat, and I will email to Professor Kang to ask him. Okay, and I will respond to you back in person because it's time for our next speaker, Professor Kang. Okay.